Interment for as Gerald Davidson will be at White Heaven, will be a private interment. Friends will gather around 1 p.m. We calculate approximately at around the Koi Country Club. מזמור לדוד, אדוני רואי לא אחסר, בנודה שירביצני, על מי מנוחות ינהלני. נפשי ישובב, ינחני במקלט צדק למען שמו, גם כי אלך בגיא צל מוות, לא ירא רע, כי אתה עמדי. שבטך ומשענתך המה ינחמוני, תערוך לפני שולחן נגד צורריי. דשנת בשמן ראשי, כוסי רוויה. אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי, ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He has me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He guides me on path of righteousness. He revives my soul for the sake of his glory. Though I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no harm, for you are with me. Your staff and your rod do comfort me. You set a table inside of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall abide in the house of the Lord forever. It is now my honor to call upon Nancy, Jerry's daughter, to speak.
I'm Nancy. I'm Jerry's youngest daughter, and I'm speaking on behalf of my brother, Rich, my sister, Barb, and myself. When we were asked about how many people we thought might attend today, we thought, well, how many friends does a 94-year-old have that are still around? So when I look out and see you all here with us, wow. What a tribute to my father, to our father. It warms our hearts. Rich, Barb, and I truly thank and appreciate you to show your love for Dad and your support for our family. When I was thinking of a few ways to describe Dad, I first thought positive. Growing up, we used to tell Dad he was a Pollyanna. When things didn't go the way we hoped, or we were upset over something that had happened, Dad would always assure us it was going to be okay. And sometimes that Pollyanna approach was truthfully a little annoying. We rarely saw Dad get angry, maybe 2 or 3 times in our entire lives. We knew at those rare times, wow, we must have done something really naughty. But the usual indications that we had made a not so good choice was when he would say, "We'll figure it out. Just don't tell your mother." Dad was always there to help, whether you were his wife, child, grandchild, friend, or client. You knew Dad would do whatever he could do to help you through whatever situation you were in and see it all the way through to the end. People have commented, "What a nice tribute to your father," after reading the obit. But we can't take credit for it. Dad wrote it. He brought it to me about 4 years ago so that when the time comes, we would have all the information we needed. Thank you, Dad. It really was very helpful, all the way to the end. Dad was full of love, and he cared full-heartedly about every person in his life. He loved talking with and learning about everything you wanted to share. He would listen, truly listen, to every word. Dad was a loving husband to our mom, Myrna, for 51 years. He was the most beautiful father any child could ever hope for. He loved my husband, Mark, and the two built such a forever cherished father-son relationship. They adored each other. And his grandchildren, oh, he loved them with all his heart. He always wanted to hear all about what they were doing and always asked them to send pictures. I know that got a little annoying sometimes, but so he could see and enjoy it with them. He always was so proud of their accomplishments, no matter how big or small they seemed. And he was their biggest cheerleader, encouraging them to always do their best, even when it seemed hard. He loved our friends, and our friends adored him. He was also grandpa to many of our kids' friends, and he loved them like his own. He was passionate about his garden. Every day in the warmer months, when Dad came home from the office, he would first check on us and ask how our day went. Then, still in his suit, he would go out to his garden to check on how its day went. He would water if needed, pull a few weeds that may have grown overnight, deadhead any plants that needed it, and closely examine each crop to see if they were ready to be picked. He was an amazing cook and baker. Dad loved to spend a Saturday or a Sunday cooking away in the kitchen. Sorry. And as many of you know, he was known for his incredible pies. They truly were delicious works of art. Friends and family would sit together, dig into one of his juicy apple, peach, or strawberry rhubarb pies, and savor each bite. Dad would do the same, looking awfully proud of his work being so enjoyed by his family and friends. Dad loved life and everyone in it. He used to always quote the title of the iconic movie and say, "It's a wonderful life," with a big smile running from ear to ear. And he sure lived a wonderful, full life of 94 years. And along the way, he touched so many lives. So now, Dad is up there with Mom and all of his old friends that he's missed dearly throughout the years. We know in our hearts he's smiling, sipping on his sweet Rob Roy, eating a big slice of pie, and of course, waiting to cheer on his beloved Buffalo Bills tonight. We love you, Dad.
Thank you, Nancy. It is now my honor to call upon family friend Robert to speak.
I don't want to lose this. My name's Rob Galbraith, and I was Jerry's partner in the practice of law and his friend. I'm honored to be here and speak about Jerry. Jerry, first and foremost, was a father and grandfather. Richie, Barb, Nancy, Mark, Charlie, Mason, Kyle, and Katie, you have my deepest condolences, and please know he thought and talked of all of you often. He was a wonderful person and loved you deeply. In thinking about what I was going to say here today, there were so many things that I could focus on. His deep love for his family, his outstanding legal career, the many friends he had, and the experiences that he lived. I decided to focus on what I knew best, and that was our friendship. I first met Jerry when I was in college as a friend of my parents, but I didn't really get to know him until we became partners in 1998. He, in fact, brought me over to the firm. Jerry was 68 years old, and I was 38. There was a 30-year difference in our age, but when I was with Jerry, I would never have known it. He always lived and acted like he was 30 years younger. The highest compliment you could pay him was to say how youthful he was. After having for what a lawyer would have been an exemplary career for any lawyer, he stepped up and became managing partner of our firm at the age of 77 years old. He managed the firm for several years while continuing to be one of the top matrimonial attorneys in the state. He skied into his early to mid-80s. Gene Clifford, one of our partners, was telling me a story when I said I was going to be up speaking. He said, I was skiing with Jerry one day, Jerry came back from skiing one day, and he'd been out there. It was a bluebird day. It was the middle of the week. It was beautiful sunshine, new powder on the ground, and he came out. And he said, he was on the lift, and this guy was sitting next to him, and the guy looked at Jerry. He says, this is just such a beautiful day today. He goes, I'm so glad at my age I can continue to do this. And Jerry looked at him and said, how old are you? And he said, I'm 50. And the person looked at Jerry and goes, why? How old are you? Jerry looked at him and says, I'm 80. So, Jerry worked out at Midtown until COVID hit in 2000, and he stopped working out then at 90 years old. Jerry got me working out at Midtown shortly after I joined the firm. He was my backstop. He would pick me up to ensure that I would go to the gym, and then we would ride to work together. We had the opportunity to do many things together. We skied, worked out, worked together at the firm, went to Syracuse basketball games, and talked. I'm sure many of you have spent an evening talking at the round table in his kitchen. It was a place to gather, and it was often. We talked about our lives. Our conversations were of an intellectual discourse that was rewarding and thoughtful. One of the ways that Jerry stayed so young was he kept current. As Nancy mentioned, he loved talking to people of all ages and listening and learning. He loved it. Our conversations, as I said, we talked about our lives, families, cooking, sports, the firm, and relationship. He even mentioned to me the time that he dated Kiki Ginsburg in law school at Cornell. You might know her better as Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Of course, Kiki didn't hold a candle to his wife, Myrna. As Jerry told me many times, Myrna was his best friend and made him laugh. If you had the opportunity to be Jerry's friend, then you're a very lucky person. He was a great friend to many, many people, and I'm sure that all of you have wonderful stories of the times you had. He had a busy social life, dining with friends on an almost nightly basis, going to theater, going to dinner. He loved to spend time with people. In addition to that, he always liked to throw parties. It was his 80th birthday party in which he asked me to step up and speak for him. As I said, he was throwing it for himself. So, this was in addition to all the other parties he had, the parties at Glen Ellen, where he served the pie. He told me one of the biggest regrets he ever had about moving was the loss of his garden. The new homeowners welcome parties at Woodbury, where he would organize parties for new owners that came into the community so that they could meet everyone in the community. He made the community a better place. And his rhododendron party on the back deck of his house in Woodbury, which was always fun. So he tells me he wants his party to be a roast, and that I will be the last speaker. I said, Jerry, That's not really something I'm very comfortable with. He said, "Don't worry, you'll do fine." So the first speaker gets up and basically went on for 5 or 6 minutes about what a great friend Jerry was and what a great person he was. There wasn't a nut roasted in that speech at all. Then John Green gets up. John was a long and dear friend of Jerry's, and he speaks and talks about the whole theme was how Jerry was a super friend. And at the end of the speech, pulls out a yellow shirt with a Superman emblazoned on it with a large SF and hands it to him. I step up with trepidation in my heart, realizing that I'm the only one that's going to do a roast. Needless to say, I felt a little awkward. I don't remember all of it, but I do remember the first line, and that line was, "In Jerry's life, there are 2 seasons, gin and tonic and Rob Roy." As I said, Jerry loved a good party and a good time. He was often the first there and the last to leave, always offering to help in any way that the host needed, including bringing a dish to pass or to clean up afterwards. One time, he and Myrna invited me to dinner at the house in Glen Ellen. This was relatively early in our relationship, and I didn't know what was for dinner or what kind of wine they liked, so I bought a bottle of red and a bottle of white for dinner. So, it was summer, so it was gin and tonic season, and we had a couple of those before dinner. Then at dinner, we drank 1 bottle of wine, and then the second. So we get done with dinner, and Jerry looks at me and he says, What would you like to drink after dinner?" And I said, "Jerry, anything as long as it's non-alcoholic." He looks at me and goes, "Okay, we'll have beer." The next morning, I dragged myself into work, and Jerry was behind the desk, bright as a daisy. When I asked him how he felt, he said, "Great." He had an incredible constitution which allowed him to live his 94 years young. I can't speak to Jerry's friendships with others because friendships are unique. I do know that he valued his friends and family and would do anything for them. I also know our friendship was based on mutual respect and challenging and pushing each other to think and to do better. When I first met Jerry, he liked to grab my head and pull me in like this and give me a kiss on the cheek. I explained to him that I'm a wasp. I have a 3-foot zone of space around me, and that I didn't hug or kiss. I actually would shake my father's hand. He laughed and said that we would work on that. I was fortunate enough to have dinner and a Rob Roy with Jerry at his apartment 3 days before he passed. We had a great conversation. As I was leaving, I bent down, hugged him, kissed him on the cheek, and told him I loved him. He was a super friend.
Thank you, Robert. And now from the generation of grandchildren, we call Kyle to speak.
Good morning, everybody. Apologize in advance. Had a late travel night last night, so I might be doing a little reading directly from the phone, if that's okay. But I want to thank everybody for coming out. As my mom said, it's apparent by the attendance today how many people my grandfather was able to not only meet, but build relationships with. I'm the first grandchild Jerry had, and was able to live 26 and a half years with him by my side. I watched and admired a man who raised a family of 3, embedded himself in his community, created his own law practice, built his business into a top firm, became an accomplished and decorated attorney. He was somehow a Republican, an independent, and a Democrat all in one lifetime. And I know he selfishly went out on his own terms Saturday the 18th because he could not bear watching the Trump inauguration. Despite the 70 years between us, I still considered him my best friend. you knew Grandpa well enough, you would have heard the stories of our trips that we made together. We both have passion, respect, and excitement for history. In his traditional nurturing nature, Grandpa decided to take us to Boston so I could explore historic monuments, catch a baseball game, and eat plenty of seafood. We were able to follow that up with a trip to our national capital, Washington, D.C., which I selfishly think was Grandfather's favorite trip he has been on. We conquered all of the museums, ate plenty of little neck clams, as he loves to remind me, and walked enough steps to convince himself that he will never come back. Those trips produce moments I will never forget. It helped nurture a bond that will never be filled. Despite the age gap, he was a person I could always count on. He was a second father figure to me. I always knew I could call him Monday through Sunday, anytime, and he would pick up. Whenever I was insecure, unsure, curious, I would call Grandpa. He would always answer with a smile and be genuinely curious how I was and provide advice. Whether he was in and out of surgery, in and out of the hospital, all he wanted to do was hear about me. He was the person I had the most trust in. When I had a question about school, personal relationships, work, life, he seemed to always have the answers. He would prioritize our discussions over all else and make me feel like the most important person in the world. I think my relationship with my grandfather is emblematic of how he approached everyone in his life. Whether you were his next door neighbor or a stranger, he treated everybody with respect, kindness, curiosity, and love. As we look back on his life, I'm so grateful to have had his wisdom guide me over the years. I will forever be motivated to live my life to the standard he lived his. A devoted husband, an entrepreneur, a father, a grandfather, and a role model to so many. I encourage us all to strive to be better day in and day out as my grandfather did. Whenever we would talk, he would remind me to just sit back and enjoy life. Stop stressing so hard, he would often yell. He would say, life is beautiful. Enjoy it while you have it. Cherish the ones you love. So here's to Grandpa, his incredible life and legacy, and all those whose lives he was able to touch. Forever look over us with love and guidance, and rest in peace.
Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Nancy. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, speaking to his students, asked the question, Ezehu derech tova she'idbak ba adam? What is the good way for a man to live his life? And one of the students replied by saying, to have a good eye, ayin tova. To be a chaver tov, a good friend, the second student replied. And the third one, Rabbi Eliezer, replied, to have a good heart. Lev tov. And Rabbi Yochanan said, I prefer Rabbi Eliezer's answer to those, to have a lev tov, a good heart, because when you have that, you possess all the other qualities. Jerry had an ayin tova, a good eye, because he could see the good in life and the good in people. Without a doubt, he was a chaver tov. He was a good friend, a good neighbor, a true friend. It was enjoyable to be around him with his incredible sense of humor and cheerful disposition. But above all, essential to everything else, he had a lev tov, a good heart. He was warm, sincere, generous, always putting the well-being of others before his own. He could always be counted on to do and to contribute generously to his family, to his friends, to his community. Jerry filled that role of being the supportive, positive, and caring father to his children and to others around the family. He treated his children's friend as his own. He loved life. To the close friends, Jerry was like a father figure, if not a grandfather. Interesting, because his father, Jerry's father, had passed away when he was young, when he was in school. And he had to support his own mother, Frida. He consistently took care of her. He was a devoted caregiver at that time. Perhaps that influenced his calling and his vocation of being a matrimonial attorney, being a lawyer who was adored by his clients, being a lawyer with the other side, opposing side to his counsel, adored him as well and respected because of his fairness and his caring attitude. As we heard already, and I will emphasize again, he would say about his life, I had the most wonderful life. Me who ashir, says the Hebrew tradition, who is rich, asameach bechelko, the one who's happy with his portion. And Jerry was rich because he was happy with his life. He and Myrna were very social. Unfortunately, she passed away to cancer 12 years ago. He was a devoted husband to her with great love and dedication. He had studied at Monroe High School, graduating in 1948. He had attended University of Rochester for graduate degree, finished in 52. And then he graduated from Cornell Law School in 55. He joined the U.S. Army for 2 years, serving as a law officer for the Nuremberg, Germany sub-area in post-war Germany. After leaving the Army, he returned to Rochester and began practicing law. In 1968, he established a firm that developed into what is known Davidson Fink LLP. Jerry was involved with the Monroe County Bar Association and the New York State Bar Association, where he chaired the family law section. He also served in the New York State Bar House of Delegates for several years. A member of the American Academy of Matrimonial Attorneys, he lectured across the state on family law topics. He retired in 2013 and was a member of the Town of Brighton Zoning Board and the boards of the Jewish Home and Jewish Senior Life. He was a member of Randecoy Country Club for over 50 years and a lifetime member of Temple Bethel. He and Myrna loved skiing at Ski Valley Ski Club and various ski areas in Colorado. They enjoy attending Broadway musicals and the Metropolitan Opera. And his personality was just so beautiful. His loving smile, his natural ability to bring people together. his positivity about love and life that enlightened people's lives. He is survived by his son Richard, by his daughters Barbara and Nancy and Mark, by his grandchildren Kyle and Katie and Charles and Ellie. There are many loving family members and dear friends who also feel part of this big family. He remained active, as we heard, until his 90s, organizing parties, being involved. But at some point, about 3 months ago, his health turned for the worse, and he accepted his fate. He was proud of his accomplishment, proud of his family, but he realized that life is coming to an end. And it did. And I would like to leave you with another rabbinic inspiring source. Judaism teaches us to look for certain qualities when we think about a person's life and achievements. The same Pirkei Avot that I quoted before, the ethics of the sages, Rabbi Shimon informs us, Al shlosha ketarim chaim, keter Torah, veketer kehuna, veketer malchut. That there are 3 crowns which command the respect of people. The crown of Torah, being a sage and known of Torah, the crown of priesthood, and the crown of sovereignty. Here comes another rabbi, Rabbi Shimon, and says there is a 4th quality that surpasses all these 3. The crown, Keter Shem Tov, Ole al Gabayhen. But the crown of a good name excels them all. We might be, asking ourselves, why should this be? In the case of both the priesthood and the royalty, the answer seems to be pretty obvious. A person becomes a priest or a king or a president, not through his merit or her merit. She reaches these stations through heredity. If his father was a priest, and mother was a priest, she becomes a priest automatically. Learning is, however, a personal accomplishment, and certainly deserves high praise. But Rabbi Shimon would have us to understand that learning is not necessarily accompanied by nobility of character. Only in the case of a bearer of Shem Tov, of a good name, do we find outward honor combined with inner worth. So looking back over life, we see that Jerry has earned the Keter Shem Tov, the crown of a good name, through his accomplishments, mainly through his love of his fellow human being, love of his family, and his personal character. Even when our parents died in their 90s, we feel that they have lived too short of a time. Well, it is God and not us who makes the final judgment. And God has deemed inappropriate to take Jerry from us. And therefore, we must say, according to tradition, the Lord gave, and now the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord forever. Adonai Natan, va'Adonai Lakach. Yehi Shem Adonai mevorach. Shaul ben Israel Vefrida, our beloved Jerry, brought joy to many and helped countless people throughout their lives to make their lives better. He leaves a tremendous void that will never be filled. He leaves behind a legacy that will continue to inspire the next generation, those who knew him personally and those like myself that have heard about him. May his memory be a blessing to all of us. Yehi Zichro Baruch. And let us say all together, Amen. Kindly rise for the memorial prayer. El male rachamim shochen bamromim ametze menucha nechonam tachat kanfei השכינה במעלות קדושים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים את נשמת שאול בן ישראל ופרידה שהלך לעולמו בגן עדן תהא מנוחתו אנא בעל הרחמים אז תראהו בסתר כנפיך לעולמים וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתו אדוני הוא נחלתו וינוח בשלום על משכבו ונאמר Amen. God, exalted and full of compassion, grant perfect peace in his sheltering presence among the holy and the pure, to the soul of S. Gerald Davidson, who is now gone to his eternal home. Master of mercy, we beseech you, remember all the worthy and righteous deeds that he performed in the land of the living. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. The Lord is his portion. May he now rest in peace. And let us say all together, Amen.